welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the iHeartRadio network, as we do it every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And Big C, there's so many people to thank. I want to thank all of our listeners from Latin America. So thank you very much for listening in to Charlton and Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network. Of course, London, England, thank you very much. Also, the great people from Canada, up north, Big C. I'm going to learn that national anthem before I start tuning it up even more, Big C. But I also want to thank the people in Australia on the bottom part of the earth. And, of course, the great United States of America. But, Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south, Big C?
Another exciting weekend of football down here in Charlton, especially college football-wise.
Oh, yeah.
We've been watching you boys out there on the West Coast taking drugs and stuff because you have a whole lot of uncertainty and everything. But don't worry about it. Just keep watching it in the South and you see how football will play.
Oh, yeah, we definitely understand that, Big C. And speaking of football, we have some Monday Night Football kicking off tonight. So everybody's into the Monday Night Football game. We get to see Carson Wentz in his second start against the Chicago Bears. That's one game that a lot of people are looking forward to. And I think it's going to be a game where the Bears get a chance to prove that they can at least win a couple of home games, Big C. They haven't been successful over the years. But your thoughts on that, and we'll get into some college football as well, Big C. But tonight's game, Carson Wentz going to Chicago in the Windy City. Not too windy today, Big C, but your thoughts on that game?
Well, the question mark in this game is always going to be Jay Cutler. But on Monday Night Football, since he's been the Bears quarterback, Charlton, he's been 3-1.
Yeah.
So he's had some success on Monday night. But, the Bears looked kind of lackluster last week. They're going to really have to come out. Wentz played an excellent game for a rookie in his first start in the NFL, getting the Eagles to a victory. But, the Bears are at home. And, that midway crowd can be awful tough. So if Cutler doesn't get off to a fast start, Chicago could be in trouble, Charlton.
Well, speaking of being in trouble, we know there's so many things. No one would have ever thought that you would say the Seattle Seahawks are in trouble. But we'll start off with a little bit of Adrian Peterson. Man, this guy already had an injury a couple years ago. He came back from the repaired knee, Big C, but now he's been injured again. Your thoughts on Adrian Peterson, even though the Vikings beat Green Bay in that game? I would just love to see him have a better, healthier year, Big C.
Well, nobody wants to see a running back or any player in the NFL, Charlton, with an injury. But this is the lesser of all knee injuries that you can have, is a meniscus tear. So, but the running back needs all that cushion in the knee that they can have. So, hopefully Adrian will be back in 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
After getting this thing cleaned up, from the doctors. But the Vikings, look good in their home opener last night at U.S. Bank Stadium.
Yeah.
Topping the Packers as they did twice last year. They opened up this season, beating them again at home to open the stadium with the first victory.
Yeah, that's a great-looking stadium, too. It goes to show with $1 billion, Big C, you can make a lot of things look good with $1 billion. Also, today is beautiful September the 19th, 2016. And this first segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go down and test drive your Escalade, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. And as we always say, Big C, yours is the one with the mud inside the carpet. So sometimes you good old boys don't clean your feet, Big C. Why do you put mud in the inside of your Escalade, Big C?
Well, Charlton, real men worry about what they're riding around. You got all those prissy people out in California with their foo-foo drinks with umbrellas in there.
Yeah.
We drink straight from the bottle back here, and if you find an empty bottle in the back seat, don't worry about it. That's how real men ride.
Well, that's so funny, Big C. And speaking of real men, I'm telling you that it's amazing how the NFL, it's a macho game, Big C, and everybody loves to be physical, and it's all about money. Now, when you think about the Washington Redskins, they have some locker room troubles already. They just signed Kirk Cousins to a money contract that makes him a franchise guy, $20 million a season. But he actually threw a pick, and he's having some inside locker room problems, Big C. What's going on with Kirk Cousins in Washington, D.C.?
Well, you think about, Coach Gruden, last year and the year before, he really beat Robert Griffin into the ground.
Yeah.
So he maligned him throughout the media and basically ran him out of town.
Yeah.
And, Griffin's on these Cleveland now. But now, who does he have to ride? All he has is Cousins. Don't even put Washington as a backup on the roster.
Yeah,
so,
that's
but
true.
Kirk Cousins gets $20 million and he has 2 losses. So he's basically making right now $10 million a loss. That's not a bad payday.
That's not a bad job. That's called job security. If you can get 20. Go ahead, Big C.
You had a chance to win the game versus the Dallas Cowboys, Charlton. You were already in field goal range.
Yeah.
And you throw this errant pass, and you led the NFL in completion percentage last year.
Yeah.
30 also, the money gone.
Yeah. Well, Big C, sometimes money can go to your head, or as some guys do, it goes up your nose, but we're not saying that's an issue in Washington, D.C. But also, a game that a lot of people were looking forward to, especially on the West Coast. You have the Los Angeles Rams, and they were not given much chance at all against the Seattle Seahawks coming from the Great Northwest. I love the throwback Ram uniforms where they had the colors they had in Anaheim. But for them to get a lackluster win over the Seattle Seahawks, what's going on with Pete Carroll and the Seahawks? Is there more to worry about with them being 1-1 on the season, just barely beating Miami, Big C, and now they lose on the road to the Rams?
There's a lot to worry about with Seahawks, Charlton. They look well in the preseason, especially Game 3 when they played Dallas and they took out Tony Romo. But since the regular season started, Charlton, they've only scored one offensive touchdown. You think about that ineptitude from a team that, finished the season the way they did last year with Russell Wilson throwing some 30 touchdown passes in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
But they've only scored one touchdown. This is their third consecutive loss to the Rams also. It's great to see the Rams win a game at home, especially in their inaugural game with over 90,000 people, Charlton, in the Coliseum in L.A. Great scenes for the NFL.
Yeah.
But the Seahawks have some problems. Russell Wilson is on the gimp. He's not healthy. Do you sit him down a week and let him get healthy, Charlton? Put your backup quarterback in, and if you're expecting to take a loss, take the loss. You're going to need to get on a roll if you're Seattle. You got to put together 10, 11 victories if you plan on making the playoffs.
Yeah, and talking about the playoffs, I'm telling you, Big C, the Cowboys in the NFL roundup, the Cowboys beat the Redskins 27-23, and going back into that game, I know we talked about some Kirk Cousins, but Dak Prescott, as a rookie quarterback, passes for 292 yards and a score. He actually ran for a score, Big C. Now, this is a guy they really weren't planning on playing at all this year, and we just talked about the Rams and how they took Goff as a top pick, he and Wentz. But Prescott out of Mississippi State, this gentleman, almost 300 yards, and Jerry Jones is still thinking about bringing back Tony Romo, Big C. I just want to get your thoughts on how impressive you are with Prescott.
Well, when you look at Prescott, Charlton, the team is adapting to Dak Prescott's style of play. He's very mobile. He has a very strong arm. He's been concise with his passes, Charlton.
Yeah.
The receiving corps really likes the guy because he gets the ball there in a hurry. Now, you got to look at this. The Dallas Cowboys already this year has won as many games as they did with quarterbacks not named Tony Romo last season, Charlton.
That's true.
So Dak Prescott has really done a job for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, Alfred Morris should be the starting running back. I know Ezekiel Elliott was their number one draft pick, but Alfred Morris is a proven veteran. He's rushed for 1,000 yards in 2 different seasons in the NFL when he was with the Washington Redskins. That right there would really uplift their running game and their offense because you have a veteran running back and a rookie quarterback instead of 2 leading rookies in the backfield with the running back and quarterback, Charles.
Well, also think of another game, Big C, another big-time name. Remember, for the Denver Broncos, Von Miller actually held out because they wouldn't give him the money, but they gave money to Andrew Luck right away, Big C. Now, think about what happened when they played. We talked about last year where Von Miller took care of Roethlisberger. He took care of Tom Brady and then shut down Cam Newton in the Super Bowl. Well, here's another $144 million quarterback in Andrew Luck, and then it was Von Miller who got the strip and the sack of Andrew Luck that led to another touchdown, and Denver prevailed in that game, beating the Colts 34-20. Now, if you're a GM, and we talk about defense wins championships, the guy that was made to hold out the most was Von Miller, the Super Bowl MVP, and he's putting everybody to shame, letting them know that he should be the guy that's the highest paid, not these overhyped quarterbacks in Andrew Luck, Big C.
Well, the Denver's defense has played lights out. They lost DeMarcus Ware.
Yeah.
He's going to be out about 4 to 6 weeks with a shoulder injury, Charles. But this defense across the line as a whole has been tremendous. You know, starting with the playoff run last year, getting to the Super Bowl and capping it off with a victory, and to start out this season where they shut down the Panthers, and now they come out and shut down the Colts in the second game of the season. Simeon has done a yeoman work at quarterback, but the defense for the Broncos has been the true teller. And when you look at Von Miller, as far as his productivity, Charlton, up front, he does so many things to disrupt an offense. People can take a step back. Remember Lawrence Taylor?
Oh, yeah.
and Lawrence Taylor was that same type of player.
Yeah.
And when you can go out, and the late Derek Thomas also of the Kansas City Chiefs, tremendous edge rushers such as Von Miller, they were difference makers in a game, and that's what you see with Von Miller. Could be right now the NFL's MVP, Charlton.
Oh, I think you're 100% right on that. He was last year's defensive MVP as well as Super Bowl MVP. Really impressed with the way he plays. And we talked about the Pack. The Vikings, they were my pick to win their division against the Packers. Now, think about this, how strong the Vikings are. They lost Bridgewater, okay, and now they lost Adrian Peterson. That was their 1-2 combination, Big C, but they were still able to go to 2-0 in the season with Sam Bradford. He threw for 286 yards, and now even though they had Aaron Rodgers, he had a great game. He was sacked 5 times in Green Bay. They put a lot of money in their offensive line. Why is Aaron Rodgers being sacked 5 times, Big C?
Well, you look at Green Bay's offensive line. They put money into it, but they didn't upgrade it. All they did was pay the guys that were there.
Yeah.
You have Jordy Nelson who can no longer separate, Charlton. And with Jordy Nelson no longer separating, you don't have that threat over the top. And when you don't have threat over the top, that shuts down the routes that Randall Cobb can run underneath.
Yeah.
So his play is going to be limited. Adams has just never stepped up as a wide receiver. Lacey lost weight, but Lacey's not the same running back that he was, Charlton.
Yeah.
So their offense is struggling in many ways, trying to find an identity. Aaron Rodgers has been pubbed for many years as the best quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
But you're only the best quarterback any place, Charlton, when you have the receivers. And if you want to look at the best quarterback, you need to go up to the Northeast and look at Pittsburgh right now.
Oh, he is playing lights out. In fact, when you think about playing lights out, this segment is sponsored by your California Lottery. And I'm talking about the California Lottery because I'm a little upset, Big C. I've been praying for the California Lottery for the last couple of weeks. And then I told God, I'm honor your word, God. I even called some pastor friends of mine and asked them to pay for me, Big C. But they told me to pay them first. So T.D. Jakes and Joel Osteens and Creflo Dollar were still trying to win that Powerball and Mega Millions. Somebody hit it, Big C, over $200 million. But wait a minute, Big C. You bought a new Escalade. Did you win the lotto, Big C? You just didn't tell me about it.
let me knock some of that blood off my ticket. That might be the winning ticket. I just threw in the back with everything else.
Everything else.
I don't care about what's in the back of your car, Charles.
That's funny. You ever get into somebody's car and the car is sparkling clean? It could be brand new, and then they'll have paper and mud and dirty shoes all inside of it, Big C. But the California Lottery.
You got to stop talking about it like that, Charles.
Okay.
You got everybody wanting to look through my back window.
I understand. That's why they come tinted, Big C. But going back into the NFL, and you talked about it already, I think one of the greatest quarterbacks, Ben Roethlisberger, here's a guy who gets injured quite a bit, but he's also very physical, and he had a great game against their arch rivals, the Bengals. They won 24-16. Ben threw for 259 yards in that win, Big C. They're 2-0, and Andy Dalton had 366 yards in a loss, Big C. Your thoughts on that game?
Well, very physical game. When you talk about the NFL, you talk about the old days, and you think of the rivalry games, and the teams didn't generally like each other, the Raiders and the Chiefs.
Yeah.
That was always a slugfest. When you looked at the Steelers and the Browns, used to be that back when the Browns were a good team, Charlton.
Yeah.
And now you have the Steelers and the Bengals. You had the Cowboys and the Redskins for a while.
Yeah.
But you got the Steelers and the Bengals. There's a general disdain between these teams. If you think about what has happened in the playoffs over the past couple of years, what has happened leading into the playoffs, teams losing players via injury, very violent. And going into this past game, Charlton, the previous 3 games that these teams have played, there had been a total of 45 penalties.
Yeah.
So, a lot of penalties. This last game didn't have as many, but that lets you know how physically these teams go against each other.
Oh, they do it.
Game, Ben Roethlisberger, when you look at him, Charlton, he's a mountain of a man standing in the pocket.
Yeah.
Great arm, great presence, and great leadership ability.
Yeah, he reminds me a lot of you, Big C, in that leadership ability, great arm, great presence. But I still think you owe me some moonshine for this next game because the Cardinals.
We'll get you okay. Too much because we don't want you passing out.
Well, too late for that, Big C. Too late for that. But I also want to say that Carolina and San Francisco, what a game. I didn't think that Carolina could cover the spread. I think there was a 13-point spread, and they actually went in by more than that. And the 49ers, obviously, I didn't think they would put up that bad of a fight. I think they found Gabbert, their quarterback, out here in San Francisco, but I don't see why they want a guy who's 50% he's actually less than 50% pass completion. In fact, career-wise, Big C, Gabbert has thrown only 3 less interceptions than touchdowns, Big C. But for some really, what's going on with Chip Kelly? Why does he think that's the guy he needs to go with when career-wise he's thrown about 38 touchdowns and he's also thrown about 35 interceptions, Big C? That's not winning program right there, Big C.
Well, Charlton, I think there's a little more about management than what it is a head coach. If you think about the position that Colin Kaepernick was in prior to bringing in Chip Kelly, that they had made the trade for Gabbert last year. And so that you make a trade for a guy like that and what they gave up, they were expecting big things from him. They were trying to say that they could make a move that Harbaugh didn't make and be successful.
Yeah.
But, Gabbert hadn't had any success in Jacksonville. That's why it was so easy for them to give him up. And now coming to San Francisco, you got to remember that you got this quarterback that has had tremendous success for your organization.
Yeah.
And his name is not Gabbert.
Right.
But you're willing to sit him on the bench, and that lets you think that management doesn't have a clue as far as wanting to win, Charles.
Yeah, it's almost embarrassing because we're talking about a franchise that has won, I believe, 5 NFL championships, Big C, most of them under DeBartolo. But when you think about it, this is a guy, and I'm not knocking Gabbert, I'm just looking at the numbers, just the facts. He has the 31st lowest QBR rating of NFL quarterbacks, and they have a guy that took them to their last Super Bowl since 1995, and they're sitting him on the bench. It doesn't make any sense when they have a guy that's barely 50% completion. Actually, pass completion is about 50%, and he's only thrown 3 fewer interceptions and touchdowns, and he threw 2 interceptions in this game on the road against Cam Newton. I think it's bad that the 49ers have a billion-dollar stadium, and they're choosing guys that don't have a history of winning, Big C. I'm thinking about going out trying out for the 49ers, Big C. I haven't thrown a lot of touchdowns, Big C. But anyway, Chip Kelly, I guess he's going to get his resume ready. And when you think about more teams getting their resume ready, I don't think it's going to be the New England Patriots. No matter who they have at quarterback, Big C, they just keep winning. Garoppolo threw for 3 touchdown passes before leaving the second quarter because of an injury. But they're 2-0 in this season. Miami's a tough 0-2. Your thoughts on that game, Big C?
Well, Charlton, you and I had talked about when the Brady suspension came down that Jacoby Brissett would be the starter from the 3rd game of the season.
Yeah.
Wasn't hoping for an injury for Jimmy Garoppolo, but that was something we had talked about on our program.
Yeah.
If anybody goes back and listens into our archives, we had spoke about that. But, this is what a team prepares for when you have a great draft and great director of personnel and head coach. Jacoby Brissett, is a quality quarterback. He went in the 3rd round. He was actually drafted ahead of Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
So New England saw something in this young man. And when you think about the quarterbacks from New England's roster, Brady went in the 6th round.
Yeah.
Garoppolo went in the 2nd round. Brissett went in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
But one thing they all have in common is a guy named Bill Belichick.
Yeah. He doesn't smile much, but he's happy.
He understands talent to some degree, Jonathan. I haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah.
But he understands talent to some degree.
Yeah.
And he's been very successful with the talent that he has. So it's not just the quarterback. We put a lot of emphasis on Tom Brady, who's been tremendous throughout his career. But these backup quarterbacks coming in, you remember Matt Castle.
Oh, yeah, Castle.
About several years ago.
Yeah.
When he came in and won 10, 11 games.
Yeah.
When they had Ryan Mallett, who had some productivity prior to being traded. And Jimmy Garoppolo has showed well in his time.
Yeah.
Now you got Jacoby Brissett. Bill Belichick is a master of preparation.
Yeah.
New England will be successful up until Tom Brady gets back, and will continue that success after he returns, Charles.
Well, I agree with that, Big C. Also, a game that was kind of a shocker to me. It wasn't a shocker that the Cardinals won, but it was a shocker they beat the Buccaneers 40-7, and Carson Palmer got on stride again, 308 passing yards and 3 touchdowns, and they're 1-1 on the season. Now, Winston, he had 4 times. He got hit 4 times, intercepted 4 times, Big C. Not a great game by Winston, but the offensive line really let him down. Even had a pick 6 return, 60 yards for a score, Big C.
Well, you have to learn consistency in the NFL. Every team is not the Atlanta Falcons when you're playing them in opening week.
That's true.
Maybe they had too much success in opening week, and they went in and said, hey, Cardinals, another old team, we can just run past.
Yeah.
But, the Cardinals were behind the 8 ball after losing in that opening game.
Yeah, to New England.
So they needed to prove themselves, and that's what happens. People understand in the NFL, if you start 0-2, your chances of making the playoffs are not that great. And this was a team that was a playoff team last year. Carson Palmer is a wonderful veteran quarterback.
Yeah,
he understands.
He's good.
And when you look at his receiving core, such as the Larry Fitzgerald, These guys go out with intensity every week.
Yeah.
That's why they still have their jobs.
Well,
so they proved that against the Buccaneers. And that first game that they lost wasn't the Cardinals, and second game was, Charlton.
That's very true, Big C. I love when you're talking about your NFL football, Big C. And here's a game again, a great game, actually. And it was the Ravens 25-20 over the Browns. Joe Flacco threw 2 more scoring passes to Mike Wallace and also Justin Tucker. And that I'm telling you, he's injured from last year. He did take him to the Super Bowl where they beat the 49ers a few years ago. But that was a close game against Josh McCown for the Cleveland Browns. But the Browns aren't that good. I'm surprised they played them that close. But just your thoughts on Flacco coming back from injury, Big C.
Well, Flacco's, he's always been a tremendous thrower in the pocket, Charlton.
Yeah.
He's coming out of Delaware State as the #1 draft pick of the Ravens years ago. But I also got to look at the officiating in this game, Charlton. Somewhat questionable at times. And especially late in the game when they threw a flag on Aaron Rodgers who caught a pass.
Yeah.
And he was trying to pass it to the official on the sideline. It slipped out of his hand and fell on the opposing player's shoulder. Fell, not through, not spiked.
Right.
It just fell on the shoulder.
And that caused a flag. That caused a flag to be thrown.
Cleveland was at the 10-yard line.
Yeah.
Charlton, there were plays all throughout the game where a player could catch a 5-10 yard out, and they get up yapping, jawing, chest to chest on the sideline. There was never a flag thrown.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if they got these officials from the Big 12. They were used to throwing games like the Big 12 officials have done.
Yeah.
Giving teams extra plays and things like that. There's no time on the clock.
Sometimes that's Las Vegas. Those officials fly out of. I think Southwest flies out of Las Vegas into Ohio sometimes. Big C, just wondering.
But, Cleveland was in position to potentially win this game.
Yeah.
Until the officials took that away from him and forced Allen trying to force one deep into the end zone.
Yeah.
But you got instant replay.
Yeah. You got to use it sometimes.
And it should come into play when there's a questionable scenario like that. If you're going to question what a player did, also you should be able to question what an official does, Charles.
Well, I agree with that, Big C. And thinking of questioning, this segment is sponsored by United Labor Guaranteed Life Insurance, up to $100,000 with no medical questions. And also, we are endorsed by the American Cancer Society and the American Heart Association. We are also endorsed by all of the unions under the AFL-CIO. I'm looking for 1,000 licensed insurance brokers to go to work. But Charlton and Big C Sports on iHeartRadio, we're also trying to put people to work. So tweet out to us on Twitter. You can also follow us on Facebook. And again, that's United Labor Guaranteed Life Insurance, up to $100,000. If you've been turned down, simply tweet out to Charlton and Big C Sports. Big C, going back into the NFL, I look at a great game, potential-wise, at least name-wise, because you have the New York Giants at home, and they're playing the New Orleans Saints. 16-13 victory by the Giants. Eli Manning hit Victor Cruz on a 34-yard touchdown pass, and that set up a Josh Brown 23-yard field goal, Big C. Now, if you look at what happened last year, Drew Brees threw for 511 yards last year. They held Brees to 263 yards, and the Saints are 0-2, Big C. Your thoughts on that game?
Well, it wasn't a game that everybody thought it would be the offensive game. It was a defensive game.
Yeah.
Victor Cruz played tremendous at wide receiver in that game, though, Charlton. And that was the difference in his performance. You wonder what happened to New Orleans offense after game one against the Raiders, but we've seen that with most NFL teams. You're up one week, you're down the next week.
Yeah.
So it's early. A lot of veteran players do not play during the preseason. They normally hold them out to the third, really the fourth preseason game, Charlton, trying to keep them healthy for the season. But, and you can see the ill effects of that, as the season has started. But the Saints, have had problems defensively.
Yeah.
They played well against the Giants, but the Giants haven't had a great offense even against Dallas in week one. But, Drew Brees throwing for less than 400 yards, you have to really question what's going on. But a great victory for the Giants. They're 2-0 in the East, Charlton, leading the way. Everybody else in the game behind them.
Well, I also want to acknowledge Drew Brees. 61,589 passing yards. He passed Dan Marino, who has 61,361. He's now third place all-time on the NFL all-time passing yardage list. He only trails Peyton Manning at 71,940, and then the great Brett Favre at 71,838. I mean, the numbers sound great. He got the $44 million extension, Big C, but when you're losing, there's a lot of pressure on Drew Brees down there. And also, when I come out to the West Coast, just want to get your thoughts on two teams, actually. The Texans and the Chiefs. It was 19-12, the Texans over the Chiefs. DeAndre Hopkins caught 7 passes, 113 yards for Houston. And they're 2-0, and Kansas City's 1-1. I thought Alex Smith would have enough to take them into getting a victory. They shut him out last year in the playoff game. What happened, Big C?
Well, Well, J.J. Watt really made a difference in that game, Charlton, defensively.
Yeah.
I mean, he's playing injured. He's not 100%. He's going to be hell once he becomes 100%.
Oh, yeah.
But right now, nobody can knock him, you know. But he does a tremendous play. When you talk about Von Miller being a disruptive force on defense, J.J. Watt is just as equal because there's no answer for this guy. And when you can come in and get a couple sacks coming off of back surface against a decent offensive line in Kansas City, and they just couldn't find any productivity. Frank Gore played a tremendous game at the running back position.
Yeah.
And so when you look at that, maybe Houston has grown up. You know, when you look at this team, they put a lot of pieces in place through free agency and the draft in the last 5 years. So maybe they're finally growing up. And O'Brien, you know, coming in as head coach last year, could be the answer.
Well, definitely the answer, Big C. Another game I'm I'm a little bit shocked by it just because I thought it was a great victory in week 1 down in New Orleans. You look at the Oakland Raiders, they fall at home in their home opener, might be their last home opener in Oakland, Big C, and they lose to the Falcons 35-28. Justin Hardy caught a deflected 8-yard touchdown pass from Matt Ryan to break the tie in the fourth quarter. Oakland is now 1-1, and also the Falcons are 1-1. Ryan passed for 396 yards and three touchdowns. Oakland can't get out of their own way, though, Big C. I know this is Jack Del Rio and Reggie McKenzie's team. The great Al Davis talked about just win, baby. But for some reason, everything was in line for the Raiders to just win this game and go to 2-0 on the season. Why do they keep having these problems at home, Big C?
Well, Charles, you look at the Raiders' defense first and foremost. In 2 games, they've given up close to 80 points.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be successful in the NFL if every 2 games you're giving up 80 points, Charles.
Yeah.
And we saw that. And that's the same film that the Falcons were looking at was the New Orleans game.
Yeah.
So they knew where they could exploit the Raiders, and that was through the pass game, and they ran the same routes that the Falcons was running. So whoever's on the defensive side of the ball, just like in Buffalo, the defensive coordinator doesn't have a clue as far as the passing attack.
Well,
and so
that's Ken Norton Jr. Ken Norton Jr. out of UCLA.
Have to sure of their secondary.
Yeah.
They got a pass rush, but they have no secondary. And without a secondary, you're going to lose a lot of games this year, Charles.
Well, I know they lost Woods into retirement last year. As an older veteran on that team, he actually led them in interceptions last year. Sometimes experience really does help, but that's something they're going to have to really show up because they were in prime position to challenge for the AFC West Championship. But if you can't win your home games and you have to go for 2 on the road to beat a winless New Orleans Saints team, I'm just going to have to see the Raiders do it before I really jump on that bandwagon. I thought they had a win in their pocket, Big C. Also on the West Coast, the Chargers 38, the Jaguars 14. Now Phillip Rivers, he matched his career high with 4 touchdown passes, and Melvin Gordon had 102 yards in a score. And San Diego's now 1-1, and Jacksonville is actually another 0-2 team, Big C. Your thoughts on San Diego?
Well, San Diego lost Danny Wood. He had a great utility back that they've had. He was great coming out of the backfield on swing passes and also changed the pace in offense.
Yeah.
But, the Chargers also lost Keenan Allen the week before.
Yeah.
So they've lost 2 integral parts of their offense at the receiving and running back position in the past 2 weeks. We know your rich buddy Joey Bosa hasn't got on the field yet.
Maybe he won the lotto, Big C. Maybe he's the one that's been praying harder than us, Big C.
Well, he did hit the lottery when he went to San Diego. But it was good to see Phillip Rivers catch the stride that he did in this game.
Yeah.
And, he's working with a makeshift set of players. Gordon getting over 100 yards rushing.
Yeah.
Maybe this offensive line in San Diego's gelling. You will always come back to line play, Charlton, when you're looking in the NFL. The guys that get all the accolades are the $100 million players, the $50 million players. But it comes down to your line play. They protected Phillip Rivers, allowed him time in the pocket because he has no mobility.
Yeah.
I might be able to outrun him.
I'm sure you could outrun him, Big C, especially when they got moonshine at the finish line, Big C, from what I understand. But I also want to bring this up. This final segment is sponsored by One Life Insurance, One Life America Life Insurance. I'm a broker with One Life America, and we are the leaders in the country when it comes to final expense. I'm also looking to hire 1,000 licensed insurance brokers to help offer final expense protecting American families. And I also want to acknowledge some of the entrepreneurial women out here in California, Big C. I know you guys have them all over the South, but in California, I think we have more entrepreneurs coming to California than you do in the South, Big C. And I'm working with a few of them. Cindy Chavera, she's excellent when it comes to marketing, and she's with the G5 Textiles. And then also Team IP. We're making uniforms for anyone in the world that needs uniforms. Contact Charlton in Big C Sports. Also with Myra DeLeon, she's one of the top insurance agents in all of California. We're looking at talking to her about doing a show. She's also bilingual, and she's trying to teach me some Spanish, so I know Paquito is one word I understand, Big C. And then there's also a good marketer and an entrepreneur, and Saeed Bearfield. She's also very positive and trying to put people back to work and being a source of inspiration for people. So Charlton and Big C Sports, we're not just reading the scores, Big C. We're also trying to put people back to work with some great entrepreneurs as well. But I want to transition in this final segment over to the world of college football. Now, you talked about this guy before I even thought he was as good as he is, and now everybody's talking about him. Louisville put the beat down on Florida State, Big C, and now they're ranked number 3 in the country. What did you know about this kid that other people didn't catch on to until the first 2 weeks of the season, Big C?
Well, Lamar Jackson, Charlton, is just a tremendous talent.
Amazing.
Last week, and I want to correct a mistake that I made. I said 100 points were be scored in this game, and Louisville will score at least 60. So they did deliver on their behalf.
They didn't cover. All the good old boys in Las Vegas calling you for that one, Big C.
they scored 63 points, most points that Florida State has ever given up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But Lamar Jackson, we've seen performances like his before in September with players like Geno Smith, who lit it up for 20 touchdowns when he was in West Virginia.
Yeah.
But, this guy is the real deal, Charlton. There's no answer for him. And, to go up against Florida State, a team with tremendous athleticism defensively,
yeah,
and make them look like they didn't belong in the same stadium.
It wasn't even a game.
And he didn't even play the fourth quarter, Charlton.
Yeah.
So he's yet to play a complete game this season. In 3 games, he's only played 8 quarters. So do the math.
Yeah.
3 games, 8 quarters. What is it, 21 touchdowns he's been responsible
He's amazing. He's out, and not only that, Big C, he changes your defensive game plan. I'm sure Florida State was they were just beaten up, and maybe they had some inspiration from the late Muhammad Ali, because they did honor Muhammad Ali at that game, Big C. So just something I'm very proud of. We talk about this Ali consciousness that you started, Big C, and then Jim Brown got on board, and Harry Edwards. But I'm so impressed that they played so hard and inspired for the late Muhammad Ali. I hope a lot of people can take that thought into their work lives. But just congratulations for Louisville. But I know another big game that you were kind of shaking in your boots about, Big C. Alabama, I think they were down, 24-3 at one time, and they came out and won a close game against Ole Miss, a team that had beaten them the prior 2 years. Is Nick Saban, is that a game that they just have Alabama's number, even though Alabama came out and won it, Big C? Your thoughts on that?
Well, they do have Alabama's number. Alabama scored 45 of the they went 45-6 after being down point-wise. But their defense was the difference in that game. Their defense returned 2 picks for touchdowns. So that's 14 points that they hung on the board defensively. Without that, it would have been the 3rd consecutive loss of Alabama to Mississippi. Mississippi is probably the best 1 and 2 team in the country, Charles. When you look at how they lost to Florida State. Yeah. In a shootout, they lost to Alabama in a shootout. But, Alabama, great teams learn how to win, Charles. Yeah. And that's what they've done. They found a way to stay in games and found a way to win. Offense and defense and special teams are all integral parts of a team. And Alabama proved that against Mississippi on Saturday, Charles.
And I think also one of the greatest coaches in college football is Urban Meyer. Ohio State went into Norman, Oklahoma. I thought they would win, Big C, but you said they win by at least 2 touchdowns. They basically put a blowout on Oklahoma without a kick return for a touchdown. That would have been even more decisive, Big C. Ohio State, I think that's more impressive going into Norman, Oklahoma than Alabama whooping up on USC and also, Mississippi. I want to think your thoughts on Ohio State. Is Urban Meyer the best coach in college football? Your thoughts on that, Big C?
Well, he's one of the top 2 or 3, Charlton, hands down, nevertheless, whatever conversation that you want to get into. Yeah. Now, you got to look at it from this perspective. Ohio State has 17 new starters this year. Yeah. They lost 11 players to the draft last year in the NFL, but 17 new starters. It's only 5 returners. Yeah. And so to go out on the road with these 17 new starters to Norman, Oklahoma, a very hostile place to play. Oh, yeah. And to dominate OU the way that they did, even though OU had lost earlier to Houston. Yeah. But they came out and just showed people this is grown man football. Yeah. They're playing in the Big Ten. And if you look at the Big Ten as a whole, Charlton, they got 4 teams that are ranked in the top 10 in the country.
Yeah.
So they're doing something right in that conference right now, and Urban Meyer right now is the kingpin.
Well, when you talk about the kingpin, we'll run out some of the top 10. We have actually Alabama's ranked number 1 in the AP Top 25 poll. They're followed by Ohio State, which I think is really the number 1 team. Louisville in at number 3, Michigan number 4, Clemson number 5, Big C, Houston's number 6, Stanford from the West Coast, they're number 7. Michigan State put the beat down on Notre Dame. They're 8. Washington from the Pac-12 is number 9. And then Texas A&M rounds up the top 10. And I know we tend to vote for teams too soon, Big C, because there's been so many shakeups already in the first 2 weeks of the season. But I want to give a little bit of thought just to North Dakota State, because they went into Big Ten territory and they beat an Iowa team that I'm not impressed with, but they were ranked. Your thoughts on that victory, Big C?
Well, you think about this Iowa team, Charlton, that went undefeated going into the Big Ten championship game last year against Michigan State.
Yeah.
Not only that, they played in the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, they were blown out by Stanford.
This was a highly talented team, and they were ranked nationally.
Yeah.
North Dakota State, who has won several Division II championships, Charlton.
Last 4.
And have won the last 6 games against Division I teams.
Yeah.
You know, power conference teams. They won the last 6, and they dominated Iowa, Charlton.
Yeah.
They went into Ames and dominated them. You know, maybe if the Big Ten is looking for expansion, maybe they need to look at North Dakota State and bring them into the Big Ten.
Yeah, I think that's very true, Big C, because they did play competitive football, even though they won it by a field goal in the end. That's just impressive. And also, I want to look out to the West Coast, even though they're not ranked. The California Golden Bears, they actually beat a top 20 program for the first time in a long time, and a high-power shootout over Texas, a late game on the West Coast. But congratulations to Cal Berkeley for whooping Texas, the Longhorns. A great win for the Pac-12. Oregon, unfortunately, they went into the Big Ten and they lost a great game at Nebraska. But Freeman, their All-American candidate tailback, actually went out with a leg injury, Big C. But I'm impressed with teams that play these big games in the preseason that are out of conference. Your thought on, is Nebraska back, Big C? They looked pretty good over the weekend.
Well, you know, Mike Riley, needed some time to get his system in play. You know, he had a lot of success at Oregon State, always knocking out the big, but if you recall, he knocked off USC twice when they were ranked number 1 in the country.
Yeah.
He also knocked off Oregon when ranked number 1 in the country. So Mike Riley has a coaching lineage that goes way back. He went to college at Alabama. He played quarterback there. So he understands offense.
Yeah.
You know, he coached with the San Diego Chargers in the NFL. So he has this rich history of knowing players. He's gone into Nebraska, where they've always had great athletes.
Always, yeah.
Always, over the years. And so Mike Riley has this team on track. Nebraska started off undefeated this season, 3-0 for the first time in about a decade. So there's a lot of promise in Lincoln right now.
Yeah, they're very promising in Lincoln. And the last thing I want to say on college football before we get into some of the baseball real quick, Big C, this segment is sponsored by BeneathThisWingsFoundation.org and CYNN Entertainment. Cynthia Evans, she's the best at Northern California when it comes to promotions. Big C, just a little bit of Major League Baseball. It gets more exciting as we get closer to the playoffs. Some good games on store for tonight. Boston, they're playing at 4:05 start, and they're playing at Baltimore. The Angels are playing at Texas. Houston is playing at Oakland out in the Coliseum, Big C. And Toronto, they're playing up in Seattle. In the National League, you have Atlanta, and they're at the Mets. At 4:10 was the start there. Washington, they're at Miami. Cincinnati, they're at the Chicago Cubs. That should be a great game there. Hamels at 14-9 on the season. And St. Louis starts Martinez. He's 14-8. They're at Colorado against Anderson. It's 5-5 on the season. And Arizona's playing at San Diego. And San Francisco can't seem to close out the tough games, Big C. The Giants dropped a couple at home to the Cardinals. They're starting Bumgarner 14-9 at the Dodgers. Kershaw, he's 11-3 on the season. That's a 7-10 start on the West Coast. That could decide the NL West Championship. Your thoughts on Kershaw and Bumgarner going at it, Big C?
Well, Kershaw, when he went on the injury list, he was 11-2, but now he's lost another one coming off of that. Probably the 2 most dominant left-handed pitchers, other than David Price, in the major leagues.
Yeah.
But you have them both in the same division in the West, San Francisco and the Dodgers. 2 hated rivalries, coming close to the last broadcast of the great broadcast.
Ben Scully, amazing.
Ben Scully there in Los Angeles. And it's going to be sad to see him go. He's not going to call any of the playoff games there in LA if LA makes the playoffs. But this is a game of 2 heated rivals, the Dodgers and the Giants, and you can go back decades. This these teams will decide the West.
Yeah.
One of these teams can knock the other one out if they want to go at it. But, going to be a great series nevertheless, Charles.
Well, Big C, I love talking to you. We do this all the time on iHeart Radio Network. And I also want to say to everybody, because our show is about having a social consciousness, and I want everyone to realize we're in the land of the free and the home of the brave. I also want to say this time of the year, domestic violence tends to increase. And I'm saying to all women, just call 911. If you're a man or a woman and you have a woman going through trouble, please call 911. Let's keep our women safe, especially during football season when people tend to act a little bit more crazy, Big C. But every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time, worldwide, you can listen to Charlton and Big C Sports on the iHeart Radio Network. And as we always love telling you, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.